gaming and changing the way we experience games in the long run. From what I saw at this announcement event, I didn't see anything that really blew my mind away in that regard. The gamepad's pretty much identical to the other one. I'm interested to check out the force feedback in the triggers. That sounds pretty cool. Having actual little actuators in all of the triggers and the buttons, so that if you pull a trigger in a gun, you get a little jolt in your finger. Just adding a little bit of that more immersiveness. But other than that, I mean, the control scheme's pretty much the same. If you had a Kinect already, there's a lot that you could already do with Kinect. And honestly, a lot of what I was doing with my Kinect just seemed really gimmicky. It seemed like something that it wasn't quite there yet. The voice controls, they were kind of on, but 90% of the time they were on. The other 10%, it was really hilarious. You get some strange things. So I'm interested to see how they've improved the software and hardware on the Kinect, on the new Kinect, on how they integrate that with the experience. And I'm really interested to see if the Xbox One ships with the new Kinect, if that's actually part of the package, or if you have to actually buy that separately. I think it would be really smart on their part.
Yeah, I'd heard that.
Yeah, I think it'd be really smart on their part, obviously, to package it all together and to make it one device that comes as a package. And if they go for much over like $500, $550, I'd say they're in some serious trouble at that point.
Yeah, I mean, price point is important, obviously. We've seen people are willing to spend large amounts of money on technology these days. I mean, people spend upwards of $500 on their phones, so arguably maybe something that costs $500 to put in your house that is supposed to replace what you already have in terms of, your television and your Skype and all these kinds of things. Maybe they might be able to pull that sort of thing off, but what do you think are the limitations in terms of price? What are people willing to pay? How high the demand will be? I mean, is this something people are going to be waiting in line for, days to get?
That's tough. It seems increasingly likely that not unlikely, but evident that people are kind of losing interest in that excited waiting in line kind of a ordeal. Or at least to me, it seems like that energy's kind of dropped off a bit. Because I remember back in 2006 when the Wii and PlayStation 3 launched, like back to back, 2 days apart. It was pandemonium. People were killing each other. Didn't the guy shoot a dude at a line for the PS3 in Seattle or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It feels like our culture, at least, is kind of moving away from that idea of waiting in line for hardware, especially with the ideas of Amazon next day shipping, because I got an iPhone 5 the day it launched, and I received it at noon the day the iPhone 5 came out. I didn't have to wait in line. I wasn't cold. I didn't have to put up with all that crap of like waiting till midnight to get the hardware. So I don't know. There's definitely going to be lines, but I don't think it's going to be as big as the Xbox 360 or the Wii or the PS3.
I think it's so important to
Sean,
remember.
did you want to add something?
Yeah, I did. I think as an old fuddy-duddy, I remember when things like the Virtual Boy or Sega Saturn came out, and their prices were off the scale for really not much, right? Especially in the fact of the Virtual Boy. But I think something like Sega Saturn's a perfect example. They had this great new system, but it didn't really have much at launch. And that's what I've kind of seen here at Xbox with the Xbox One. I'm seeing this really good system, but we're not seeing anybody really jumping on board yet. I mean, the PS4 is going to have its. Has it had a show yet? I thought it's going to have it in June, correct?
They had their big reveal two months ago.
Okay,
so they got the jump on Microsoft.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I'm a lot more excited by at least the software side of what Sony had to show for the PS4. They really, their whole announcement show was about the games they had and about the software they had to back up the hardware. They didn't even show the console. And I think ultimately, it doesn't really matter what exactly the hardware is, because we can all expect something that has 8 gigs of RAM, that's going to have a certain amount of processor speed, they're going to be pretty much comparable in hardware. They're going to be right up there right now with a pretty mid to high end PC. So I think, hardware-wise, it's not that big of a deal, and I think Sony right now has my preference in terms of software and in terms of what they have in mind. If they can deliver on it, that's a totally different question. Microsoft's shown right now I think they've shown definitely what they have in their deck in terms of cards. Microsoft's always been a little bit more honest than Sony in that regard. But, we're going to find out in like 20 days when E3 comes around.
And I think that's a good point. That's what I was kind of getting at.
That's
is the
true,
fact
yeah.
that PS4 sat there and they said, all right, this is what we've got to back up our system. And I'm just not really so sold on what Microsoft is showing us. They seem to be showing us the same thing. I mean, they're showing Call of Duty. Like, all right, okay, we know Call of Duty is going to be on this system. We know that Infinity Ward's going to make another Call of Duty. There were not as many risks. Like, for me, I'm still waiting out, hoping, desiring for the Steam box myself. Call me an indie loser or whatever, but it's the fact that that's something that excites me because that community's behind it, the game developers are behind it, and they're going to make a lot of risks if they created something like that. Whereas I see Xbox One, it's like, well, this isn't risky. We know that it's going to be good. We know what's going to be on there already, and it's going to be in fraternity halls throughout this great nation. So, I mean, like, that doesn't really surprise me as a player.
Right. Now let me just pause for 1 second. Let's see if we can hear Ian now. Can you can you try to jump in? Oh no, still
Mr. Roberts.
Still the quiet guy over there.
Show us some happiness though.
Unfortunate.
Some thumbs.
Yeah.
Hey!
We're glad you're here.
He's here for the
We're
positivity.
glad you're here regardless. Yeah, we appreciate the vibe. That sign language only works if we know it, but
yeah,
okay, that works. Yeah.
So
paper, scissors. Anyways, so okay, I've been hearing overall largely, as we talked about this on Facebook as well, the PS4 seems to be sort of where it's at, and the Xbox One isn't really impressing anybody, especially in the gaming community, in terms of what it has showed off. And do you think perhaps what Xbox and what Microsoft are doing right now is aiming for a different target audience altogether? I mean, we're really playing up the TV capabilities and playing up and sports and all this stuff. You think they're not concerned with gamers right now?
I think this is something that yeah, you go, Joe. Go.
No, she broke up a little bit at that end, so I didn't hear the full question. So Sean, you can go ahead.
I think Corrigan, are you trying to get into the idea that maybe the console wars are dead?
I would say it's more.
Well, I think that's a valid thing to bring up. I mean, don't these consoles all sort of accomplish a different thing? So Sean, what do you think on that?
Well, yeah, I think the console wars are dead. I mean, they've been dead since the 16-bit era, in my opinion. But I think consumers have kind of found their fit in specific spaces and specific molds, and it's like kind of like going in a car. Like, you know what risks you're going to get. I mean, buying a system at this point is like a car payment. So between Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, their offerings are so different to different groups. It seems to me that we are in our own communities and we're having our own conversations. And the Xbox is one community that has defined a border between the purviews of Sony and Nintendo, and specifically if we think about it globally, right? So, like, Xbox is very good in North America. It's very good in North America. We could say Canada, U.S., and we can even add the U.K. in there. But the PS3 and probably the PS4 rules globally. They dominate the Asian market. I mean, the original Xbox didn't even touch in Japan. So really, I think that we have specific communities, we have specific literal borders. So.
The console. You misspelled console for one. So okay. It was mobile devices lack. The consoles need to offer what mobile devices lack.
Xbox said they're going to work with the mobile devices, didn't they?
Yeah, I think consoles have always offered what mobile devices lack. There's extra power. That would be like the sit-down experience and then a home theater idea.
Yeah, that's very true.
One thing, going off the idea of the console wars kind of being dead, at least from a technological perspective, if you look at it, both consoles are making a move towards an x86 architecture. They're both having their CPUs built by AMD, They're basically going to be PCs that run different, like a unique operating system. Like at the Xbox One announcement event, they said that the Xbox One was going to be running a version of of Windows 8, like a kernel of it. So I mean, it's literally going to be running a version of Windows 8 that's going to be heavily modified for that hardware. But I think, as the consoles move closer and closer to an x86 architecture, just like PCs are built, you're going to have a much easier time for developers, especially for third-party developers, to be able to build cross-platform games across all three systems, across PC, PS4, and Xbox. Sadly, I mean, nobody's talking about Nintendo because Nintendo, they dropped the ball with the Wii U. Like, they delivered too little, way too late. Their controller it's interesting. I have one. It was fun to play when I first got it. But there's really nothing out there right now that holds my attention and has me really interested to keep that console going. So I think the idea of video game hardware is going to really move towards a central PC kind of idea. And I think that's where Steam's really going to flourish. And I think you're going to see a lot more from Valve, especially on all three consoles, all three systems.
Chris is giving us prison-like notes. What's up?
Yeah, there is a chat in here,
Oh yeah.
There's that.
Just going off of, I guess, what Chris is saying. I mean, here's a question. I guess I can pose to everybody. I mean, in the end, did the PC gamers, did they actually win? Because we are moving towards basically a giant computer in your living room. I mean, in some ways. I mean, as a guy who grew up and almost failed 5th grade because of Red Alert, I hold a bit of a space for PC gaming. So I feel in some ways these systems, I mean, they have controllers and all that jazz, but at the same time, it's very, very, very close to something you could do on a PC today with a keyboard. So I think that's something interesting to think about also. That you're basically buying another computer for your house in that way.
Right.
Pretty much. I mean, I've in the past year or so, I've pretty much made the move to strictly PC gaming, just because I built a pretty monstrous computer just for other work or other parts of my life, and it also plays games like an absolute champion. Crisis 3 on the PC right now looks better than anything they showed at the Xbox One reveal event. There's a picture going around Reddit right now of they had a mock-up of one of the guys from the Call of Duty Ghost game versus an actual live gameplay screenshot of a character in Crisis 3, and just the difference is mind-blowing just in terms of power. I think, PC gamers, if you have the money to afford it and build it, you're going to be a little bit more satisfied just because there's so much more flexibility that's already there. But consoles, they're making the move towards that flexibility, towards allowing you to do more with it. And I think if they really hit the nail on the head with Kinect, I think they're going to have a special outlet that no other platform really has. And I think Kinect is one of those things, if they get it right, I think it could be an upper hand for Xbox One and for Microsoft. And if they integrate that with Windows...
Sorry, I just wanted to add... I think it's interesting. I was reading the New York Times launch article about about Xbox One. They're like, oh, well, they're bringing games back into the living room. Can they save the living room gamer? I'm like, well, when did they ever leave the living room? If anything, they're just adding other things to the living room. So I think that's kind of interesting too. That when we think of gaming in our culture, we're thinking of mobile devices. We're thinking of all these different things that aren't necessarily what we consider sitting down with a controller. With that said, the best stuff we can have is on these giant machines. Or the most well thought out, well built environments digitally are on these machines rather than in your iPhone. I think that's interesting too. Just want to add that. And Wii U is great. If Nintendo could get in some way, shape, or form, if they could actually do something with third parties and not just make another Zelda, another Mario, and another Kirby game, then that would be great. But they haven't been able to do that successfully yet with their innovations.
Huh. Interesting. I just want to direct the attention over to the chat real quick, just to answer a couple of the questions that he brought up over here. Blu-ray. Does your PC play Blu-ray, Joe?
If I got a Blu-ray drive, it would.
Ooh.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I
well,
could
there
get a
is that.
Blu-ray drive for like $80. I could plug it right in and get going.
Yeah.
But and that's another part about PC gaming is that there's a lot of hands-on-ness to it, where you have to if you want to get into like actual PC gaming and really like fly with it, you're going to be one of those types of people who are going to be opening up like all the time, like every other month, cleaning it out, changing your chips, adding RAM, taking things out, putting in new drives. And so, PCs, I think especially PC gaming, speaks to a totally different audience than what the console guys are trying to get.
Yeah.
Consoles are, they're for people who want to plug it into their television, turn it on, and play a game. They don't want to have to install kernels. They don't want to have to get drivers. They don't have to change the firmware or anything. They just
But
want
now they're going to have to install. Now they're going to have to install.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not as much thinking behind it,
Yeah. True.
Yeah, it'd be very user-friendly. It's not going to be a difficult thing.
Yeah, and I think
Go ahead.
if they sell it for a reasonable price, if it's affordable enough to get like housewives or like moms or just like the kind of that casual market that Nintendo got with the Wii. The idea of the Kinect, if it works really well, and if you could just say Xbox on instead of like pressing a button, like I can see that being kind of marketable in a way, and I can see if the Kinect really, really proves to be worthy of what they're saying it is. I think that could could change it up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what Ian's saying here about the Xbox One being a one-stop shop is really kind of a key element of the marketing of this for someone like me who's not a gamer. I have a Wii that I use to watch YouTube videos and play Just Dance. And this kind of thing sort of appeals to we have Roku boxes all over our house and things like that. The sort of streamlining of the entire media experience, and for if there's someone in the family who wants to play games, being able to do it on there. But for those of us who just kind of want to walk by and maybe do like an exercise game, it works out really great. Xbox One, it'd be dope if the Kinect was in every room. This is true.
Kind of like 1984.
It's a little bit like Fahrenheit 451, right? Like
Yeah, I was about to say Fahrenheit with the
and
walls.
then the lions come and eat you.
Yeah.
Those are two different Bradbury literature, and I know that, so I don't want to get yelled at for mentioning both. Fahrenheit 451 and another Bradbury short story in the same sentence. But yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Completely appropriate.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm kind of bummed out about that I wish it was talked about, or if they actually gone with it. And I know technologically it's kind of tough to pitch it, but I know there was a patent that Microsoft filed for. I forgot exactly what it was called. But it was a projection system that would project ambient light into your room and into your playing environment that you'd line up with your television. That was part of the Xbox, so that you'd have this projector that's projecting images beyond your screen, so that your entire room becomes part of the experience rather than just what's on the screen. And
Wow.
I wish they kind of went with that. I'd love to see how that could be implemented, because that could be really cool. Because I don't know if you know anything like there's certain televisions that have LED backlighting that add ambient color to your room based on what the television is showing. And I think that's another interesting direction for changing the experience and developing the way you experience games.
Is that too much, though? Is that,
Yeah.
I mean, we have, even when you're playing the Wii, for example, it warns you after 30 minutes or so, like, maybe you should go outside. When you have something like this that's so immersive, that can actually change the environment around you, I mean, what would that really mean for us in general? Is that just gives you a reason to sort of stick in your living room? Or, I mean, there's implications, right?
Well, first off, I'm thinking of all the microwave waves that are hitting me. So that kind of scares the crap out of me on a weird kind of atomic age level.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think that's something interesting, right? I read an article on CNN today that was like, how to save your children online this summer. I said, well, maybe have them go outside. it's it's this. It is a really interesting idea, right? So like if we're really immersing ourselves in these spaces, what do we do? I mean, is this kind of postmodern kind of identity thing now? Like, oh, our identity is the cyber, or we are the cyborg, or something like that.
Right.
But no, I think that maybe Xbox should put a little pop-up window, like they have in all of their software, that says like go outside and you can't cancel out of it. Maybe even blue
like,
screen,
it needs
and
proof.
that would be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Should have a. I couldn't tell if someone else was about to talk. All apologies, but I mean, and you raise a good point. Oh, are you raising your hand? No, I mean, as opposed to, cellular waves and all that kind of stuff, I think we do have sort of a paranoia about just the idea of, like, what the heck is hitting our bodies when we use this technology. But I think on a purely social level and everything, we have that to think about. But I do want to talk, you talked briefly about it, Sean, but the Halo TV series, I mean, you've got Steven Spielberg at the helm of this thing, executive producing, which, it could go either way. I mean, he did Terra Nova, and that bombed. So what do you guys think of this? Are you going to watch? Does putting interactive content on the Xbox One make it something that you think is going to be, people are going to be like, oh, great, I want to watch that?
If we're talking interactive content with games, I still want them to put Dragon Quest as a downloadable game on Xbox. Yeah. See, Joe's shaking his head. Yes. But no, I think it's gonna be good. I mean, they have fan base for Xbox episodic things already. I mean, my cousin, I remember we were talking Red versus Blue back in the day. Like, back in the day, I mean, a couple months ago, he was like, "Oh my God, have you ever watched the Halo episodes?" I said, "Yeah, I watched them a little bit, but like, he said, no, you need to watch them." So I think, they have a community behind them, and I think Steven Spielberg will only like build that thing, like, oh my God, this is gonna be epic. Hopefully, I mean, he can mess up. I mean, he's human, we think. So I mean, like,
I think if did you guys watch Forward Unto Dawn, the build up to little mini web series that they released before Halo 4 came out?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That was bombastic. That mini show was fantastic. The way it was done, the pacing of it, the character build. And I mean, that show couldn't have been done for any less than what they'd have for a budget for an actual television program like this. I think, if they have a creative team that's dedicated enough to the fiction of Halo, that's serious enough about making something quality, I think it could be interesting. And going off of that, I think it's an interesting direction for video games and entertainment in general. Because you have things like this Halo series that could work interactively with the game, and it could change the way the game flows as you watch the show. What is it? The Bungie game, I forgot, is Destiny? Yeah, Destiny. Destiny's doing the same thing. They're having an actual TV program that's going to be airing as the game comes out and as it moves along. And it's going to be apparently massively multiplayer, but it's going to be single player at the same time. I'm really interested to see how we have this converging idea of social interaction is really going to affect the way we play a game in a single player mode, and how the entertainment around us can expand that experience. Because the whole idea, especially with Destiny, and Sony touched on this in their launch event, was that what if the video games you play can follow you past the living room, can follow you out of your house, so that Destiny's can be integrated to your phone. You can have areas in your city that you go to, and you can scan an object, and then that opens up a new part of the lore of the story, or you find like a journal entry in a cafe that somebody left. There's a wide possibility.
Geocaching.
Yeah, exactly. It's this whole idea of integrating all these electronic peripherals that are right now separate and putting it into one experience that a developer can wield and control. And I think that could be really mind-blowing, but it also could create a bunch of mindless zombie people walking around, like in that episode of Next Generation, where the Enterprise got totally wiped out by that game, where everyone's just right into it. That was on. I watched that on Netflix the other day. That was a good episode.
Speaking of converging nerddoms, yeah, geez, nicely done.
Yeah. Yeah, nicely done. Oh, hey, we've got another friend in here.
Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome, Cameron.
How's it going, Cameron? Can we hear you?
I can't tell. Give us a hello. Let's see if we can hear you.
I think he's doing something.
Oh my God. I think we can all agree right now, though, that Mr. Blade has the best lighting out of all of us.
Really
That's
He's
true.
got a beautiful backdrop. He's got a fill. He's got a key light.
Yeah,
You set this up,
yeah,
didn't you?
you're doing good over there.
Nice. Nicely
I'm
done.
impressed.
I just gotta fix your audio.
We're only.
Alright.
Oh, is that what the problem is? We can't have more people chatting.
Oh, well, Cameron, it's nice. It's nice to see you, sir.
Can you hear me
Interesting.
though?
Yes, I can hear him. I can
Yeah, I
hear
can
him.
hear you.
I didn't know
It's very quiet. If you shout, you make yourself official.
Yeah. Okay,
Is there a way
that's
to turn
cool.
it up? Sorry.
Hey, there you
go.
are.
Cool.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, now.
And it was
Where were
actually,
we?
where are we at the question list here?
I mean, we've definitely covered a lot of ground in terms of what we've discussed so far. I mean, I think the question. Oh, sorry. Wait. Hold on. Final thoughts. We don't want to bore the people.
That's right. Yeah.
This is true. Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, is this the savior of the console universe, or is this just another, entry into it? It's doing its thing, and it will come and go as everything does. And then on top of that, just what are your final thoughts? What do you think about this whole Xbox One deal, especially now that we've talked about the pros and cons and what it can offer? How you feeling?
Cameron, you want to start with that?
Yeah, since you're new.
Well, I mean, to me, as a longtime PC gamer, it doesn't really seem to offer anything that I haven't already been doing with my PC for, I don't know, I mean, the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, most of the conference seemed to me that they were just saying, hey, look at how we can alt-tab on consoles now, switch between Windows, or use Windows at all. And it's like, I've been using Windows. My operating system is called Windows. I mean, there's just not really a whole lot of new for me, especially if they're going to be still charging for online play, whereas on my PC I get a similar experience with no charge for online service.
That's
All right.
a very good point.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Ian. You can type something out and I'll read it if you want. And then Sean, how about you? What are your
I don't think it's a savior of the console. Again, I think it's just again, my two big issues are the idea that it's really just a computer in the living room, and that it seems really monopolistic on Microsoft's point. It's seen there saying, oh, if you want a game, you have to put it on your system, and then you can't play it anywhere else. You have to pay for it if you want to play it at a friend's house. And to me, that kind of kills some of the organic identity of the gaming community. Final thoughts? I think something to think about in relation to this, and Corrigan, you talked a little bit about this when you mentioned Roku systems and kind of the idea that Xbox is a Blu-ray, is looking at this as kind of like the death of the cable box. We like the series. We like the series we like them coming right to us. We don't have to wait for a specific time of day anymore to watch the things we want to watch. So it's kind of like the death knell to the cable box. Like the cable box has to become a video game system now, or something. So that's my final thoughts, I suppose. To think maybe
that's
about
a great point,
the
Sean.
death of cable.
Yeah, this might be that nail in the coffin to something that we've already been talking about, as a society. Where's TV going? This doesn't bode well. This doesn't bode well for cable and satellite. Joe, thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, going off of the idea of what's interesting to me, if this is the death of cable or the death of regular broadcast television, then why did Microsoft make such a huge deal about the fact that the Xbox can play television, or that you can switch between your Xbox and your television like that? I don't know if you guys saw the highlights video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Somebody took pretty much every time they said the word TV or sports or Call of Duty, sports. It's like it just, I don't know. I don't know if that was them just trying to be safe and just trying to play their cards at this moment. But I'm with Sean on the idea of embracing the end of television as we know it. I'm sick and tired of it. I want to move forward. I want to get away from that whole bracketed, scheduled kind of a thing. Let people kind of choose what they want to see when they want to see it. As for this being the savior of consoles, I don't think so. I think if anything, it's just another evidence that consoles are coming to an end. The idea, at least the idea of a console as we once knew it, or the idea of like the Super Nintendo or the N64 or the PlayStation, something that's its own device that is running its own hardware and running developers that make games just for that. I think if anything, this move towards a PC architecture is saying that we're moving away from that idea and moving towards this much bigger picture of togetherness that all of our hardware, not just consoles, not just video games, but everything is moving toward. Eventually, we're going to have Facebook on our toaster.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Mr. Blade's entrance here says, I see it as a revision. Commercialism adds one element and charges for something new. So I see this to be another piece in the long run of a continuous revision. I am with Sean on the death of cable. Once HBO leaves, it's over. Probably true. The TV element is the Hulu for a console. I'm just type rambling, but it's a nice chat. This is just the start of always more. Mixed media and convergence is in effect. Henry Jenkins would agree with you. That's for sure.
Marshall McLuhan is rolling in his grave right now, too.
Yeah. True story. / Leroy Jenkins. Touche. All right, this is an excellent little roundtable discussion. Glad to have gotten to chat with all of you. And
sorry I didn't get here earlier.
No problem, man.
It's good to see you for that brief moment. Have an excellent
Next
evening,
time we
everybody.
have one. Yeah, thank you. Rock 'em.